you know, I know I cleaned that red dot off right away, but it felt like it was on there for days after that. but these are holy men in the Hindu religion, and they make their living by promoting their religion. And here are some of the native people in there. The monkeys run around all over town like that, especially at the temples. They have one temple that they call the Monkey Temple because it's always got all kinds of monkeys hanging out all over it. Here we have one of the primary residents. The guy that has the mask on behind the cow doesn't have his mask on because of the cow. People throughout town wear masks almost all the time. And you'll see the people on the streets with masks on all the time. Pollution. I don't think there's any real industry other than cremation going on in Kathmandu, but the pollution from China is coming over. I understand that Kathmandu is a beautiful vista. You can see the Himalaya mountains that spread out, snow-capped mountains all the way around it, but we never saw any of them because of the pollution that was settled down over the valley. We could see the mountain range right around Kathmandu, the lower mountains, but we couldn't see any of the Himalayas because of the pollution. And so people wear those masks a lot. That cow is there just grazing on its own. Cows have free rein. You know, in the Hindu religion, cows are actually sacred because they are your ancient relatives. And because of that, you treat them special. You feed them and take care of them, but you never eat them. You know, I had they had hamburgers at this one place that we were at, and it was a ham burger made from pork. It was a ham burger. They did have water buffalo burgers, and I tried one of those, and I will never eat one again. I got through half of it, but they mixed something in there, and I don't know what it was. It was gushy. I don't know. I don't think it was ground beef. It certainly wasn't beef. Here is a temple area that we couldn't go into. It's only good Hindus can go into this area, but you can see the behind of a sacred idol that they worship. They have, as I mentioned, 390 million gods, so they have idols to everything that they fall down and worship. And especially after the earthquake, you could see them rolling these prayer wheels. And it's around some of the temple areas, they had these wheels set up kind of like we do for the kids in our play structures, where you can turn the wheel. They had these wheels set up that people would come by and keep those things turning all the time, because those were the prayers of the people going up to the gods. And it was very interesting. They had many gods. They have three main gods in the Hindu religion, but they have a multitude of other gods, and they don't mind adding Jesus to those gods. I wanted this picture in here to contrast. This is one of the bridges that we went over, and right next to the river, see this shanty type town? These are the lowest class of people. These are the people that find jobs doing the worst things, like taking care of sewer and things like that. Right next to some nice houses, right? And it's a clash of castes there. It's a clash of different kinds of different castes of people there. And the very, very, very poor, and boy, I have a new definition of poor. I really don't think anybody in America is poor anymore. If you've been to a third world country, you know what I mean. I mean, they consist on absolutely next to nothing, and after the earthquake, below nothing. It's amazing what these people live with. Here you can see some more of that shanty town alongside the river there. A place where they don't own any property. They just build a place to live, and they stay there we would call it a homeless population here, but that is their home there. That's where they live. That's where they operate from. Here, I wanted to show you a little bit how they built house. That's Casey concrete right there. You saw that around any house. Dave, I thought you would appreciate that. They have big concrete mixing machines like that. And these are the more modern style houses, and even these houses were affected, many of these houses were affected by the earthquake. But they would put up concrete pillars, and you see those poles. Steve, you might appreciate that scaffolding. Let me show you another picture. Well, wait, do we have any electricians in the group? If that was the only pole that was like that, that would be scary enough, but every pole looks like that. And what was really scary is sometimes you would see aluminum ladders leaned up against there and people hooking onto the power line, just regular people hooking onto the power lines on the aluminum ladders. This is, of course, the most modern structure around there, a new hospital that they're building that is, if you could see it closer, you could see the cracks in it, will have to be destroyed and rebuilt because of the earthquakes there. There you go. That's a scaffolding. How would you like to get up on that scaffolding, Steve? Bamboo. Actually, they say it's very strong. Actually, it's I guess, pretty good scaffolding. And they use it. All their floors are concrete. Their roof is concrete, as you see poured there. They don't have roofing materials. Somebody like Alice, your husband, would just be out of luck there. No roofs. You don't put tar on anything. It's just concrete. I don't know. It's a pretty humid, wet location, but it's just concrete. Everything's concrete. I wanted to show you the contrast between some of those older places, and this is a mall. This is a mall. That's where I had my hamburger up on that top floor there. It's a mall that we went to before the earthquake. All these pictures are from before the earthquake. That mall was, they had Adidas, and they had Nike, and they had all these different brand names. Of course, I don't know if any of it was made by Adidas or Nike. You can actually buy a lot of stuff really cheap there. But it might be knockoffs. And I put that in there to contrast. See that big old building, that nice modern motel kind of looking building, and these shanties right across the river from it. Well, after we had been in Kathmandu and we went to the mall and we looked around at the temple, then we got on to a bus, a 15-passenger bus, to go to where we were going to do our first conference. And we traveled on that fourth most dangerous highway in the world, and we're 7 hours out of Kathmandu when we got word. On the way, while we were going, we were talking to the missionary, trying to figure out what missionary life was like, and one of our guys asked him, "What's your most dangerous fear that you have? Living this far away from home, what's your most dangerous fear?" He said, my biggest fear is that while I'm gone, like today, away at a conference or something like that, we'll have an earthquake, and my family will have to go through the earthquake by themselves. I'm sorry. So we're 7 hours out. We have another 7 hours to go to get to where we're going. And we stopped for lunch. Along the way, we've noticed some rocks on the highway that weren't usually there. We saw this great big long-tailed monkey, and the missionary said, "Boy, I never see one of those around." And he was running from one place to another. I said, "That's strange. I've never seen that before." And we get to this... And this is a rough road. Believe me, you could have an earthquake and never know it while you're traveling this road. And we had an earthquake and didn't know it while we were traveling on this road. And we got to the place we were going to eat. And at that place, they said, there's been an earthquake, and we don't know where it's been, where it's centered. We don't know much about it. And while we were sitting there, we had one of the aftershocks, and everybody ran out of this place that we were eating. And there had been an earthquake, and it destroyed much of Kathmandu. It destroyed much of many villages were wiped out 100%. It was tremendous loss of life. You've read about in the paper. Actually, during that time, you knew more about it than I did. We were there, and we knew it was bad, and we saw many of the effects of it, but we didn't. I only saw 2 TVs the whole time I was in Kathmandu, and they weren't in a place where we could watch them to get the news. The earthquake stopped all the news services around town, and we just had word of mouth. So we were calling all the missionaries. All the missionaries were okay. That was great news. There were 2 of them that were still missing because they were on a trek up on Mount Everest, and we didn't know what condition they were in, but we found out that they were okay after a day or 2. So everybody was okay from the missionary staff. But many, many, many people, of course, were affected by the earthquake. So we turned around and started back. This is a typical road scene there, but it was made worse, of course, by trying to get back. Here's a gas pump. This is still on the road before we found out about the earthquake. Every place over there, almost every block is full of these little shops like this. Just open up your garage door and set up shop, and that's pretty much how you make your living. One of them will sell water and maybe some candy bars or something like that. Another one has, one thing I noticed over there, those Pringles, is that the kind you get in the can? They must last forever because they were in every store over there. I may never eat another Pringle in my life because they were just in abundance over there. But these stores, you could buy a Red Bull there in some of the stores. I found out those help keep you awake on those long hours, 12 hours away from home and different schedule. But this is some of the roads and some of the traffic that we experienced, especially as we turned around and started going back. Things got clogged. What took us 7 hours to get there took us over 10 hours to get back. This is an example of some of the smaller towns around there. That's the van that we were in. We had tourists have it pretty easy there, you know. You can rent a bus like that fairly cheap. This is on the way back as we're looking at some of the effects of the rock slides and stuff. This is how they do their farming there, terraced off on the mountains like that. Those are actual family farms. Sometimes the terraces are only 3-4 feet wide, and they're growing vegetables, they're growing rice, they're growing all kinds of things on those terraces, trying to make a living on slopes that you wouldn't believe. They terrace off and try to make a living on that. There you can see some of the other ones around there, how they've cleared up the mountain and beginning to terrace off even up higher as well. That's a toilet in that area. I'm not going to talk much about that. I hope never to see one again. This is a primary staple. We had this every place that we ate with the people from Nepal, other than in the restaurant. This was the fare that we had every place we went. It consists of some rice. There's some chili pepper there, and that's chicken. And the one place on the left, that's where we stopped and had the earthquake, found out about the earthquake. That place they actually have the killing field for the chicken right below the restaurant with all the blood and guts and gross thing. And then you get up there in the restaurant and they have one thing on their menu. That. You can order as much as you want, but that's what you're going to eat. The chickens, they cut up with a cleaver or something because all the bones are still in the chicken meat. And sometimes you get a piece of chicken, and it's all bone, and there's no meat at all. But the one on the right that we ate with some church folks there,